Hi folks, welcome to the video on removing rust from your gun parts or your gun itself, whatever it might be. It's happened to all of us, I'm sure, where something happens, it gets a little wet, you forget it in the case, you touch it, get some fingerprints on something, and you come back to it later on and you're starting to get those little rust spots starting to develop. It happens sometimes. We try to avoid it, but if you look at this video, it's probably happened to you. I've had quite a few folks asking about it in the past couple weeks, so I started digging around looking for something rusty that I could clean the rust off of. And it seems I've done a pretty good job about taking care of my guns recently. So I went through my parts bins and I found this. And I'm pretty sure it's a US model 1917 bolt. I think that's what it is anyway. And you can see that it has got a problem here. It has got some nasty rust developing right here around the head of the bolt. Pretty gnarly. I don't know if there's any more on it. Didn't really look that closely. A little bit back here, a little bit of light pitting right in through here in those areas. So I don't know how this is going to turn out. Hopefully fairly well, but you're going to find out with me because I haven't done it yet. To do this, you only need a few things. You don't have to have all these. The really critical ones are the oil, the brass, and the steel wool. The others are less important, but they're helpful. Start out with, whenever we're trying to clean this rust off, we want to keep the area well oiled. In this case, I'm using rim oil, but you can really use any oil. You can use motor oil if you wanted to, olive oil probably. Makes no real difference. Just rub that on there. To start out with on this, I'm going to take just this brush, just a gun cleaning brush, and just see if I can get any loose rust off, just to make life a little easier on us. Wipe it with a rag. Just getting some oil on it has made an improvement to the appearance, but you can see there's still pitting there. There's still rust around. So it helped a little bit. It might have gotten off a little bit of that loose, just dusty rust, but it didn't help us much beyond that. So let's see what else we can do. Go back with a little bit more oil, especially for more aggressive pitting like this was. It helps if you take a cartridge casing or any other piece of brass, really. In this case, it's an old non-reloadable 8mm Mauser piece of brass, and just come and scrape on that area where that rust has developed. And while you're doing this, you'll notice that it leaves a transfer of brass on the metal. And that's fine. It's going to be okay. But all that area, and you can be fairly aggressive doing this as long as it's a blued or a parkerized surface. If you have a painted firearm, then yeah, you could take the paint off. But in this case, this is blued, and so we can get kind of aggressive with this brass, really applying quite a bit of force to get down into those pits, and you can feel it. Feel the rough spots. And start working that nasty rust out. Because the reality is, once it's gotten to this point, it's going to have a blemish there, but we're trying to make it as appealing as we can cosmetically, and also really dig out that active rust and hopefully prevent it from being able to get any worse. So we've done that for a little while, and you can see We got some brass transfer there. We can still see some remnants of rust around. Let's wipe that clean. It's actually looking pretty good, isn't it? Aside from the brass, obviously. I still see a little bit here. So let's go back at it with the brass for just a second more. And there's still enough oil left on this brass that I don't really feel like I need to put any more on right at this moment. And I'm rubbing until I kind of feel it getting smoother. I'm not feeling that initial really rough texture that I did when I started. And that's doing pretty good. It's gonna turn out better than I thought, I think. And don't be shy with the brass here. This can be, you can really get after it if you want to. There's a deep pit here, and I'm probably shaking the camera. That's probably what I'm doing. Take it, wipe it with a rag. It's looking kind of pretty. We got the rust off. Now, you're probably wondering, well, I don't want all this brass color all over the piece. How do we get the brass off? The way you get the brass off is by putting some oil on it again. And for this, you do want to use generous amounts of oil. And we're going to take a piece of 4/0 steel wool, quad-aught steel wool. It's very fine. And we've got all this oil here. And we're going to take the brass and just lightly buff. I'm not going very hard here. And you can kind of feel this out where use gentle pressure. If it's not taking the brass off, use just a little bit more, but I'm just very lightly with lots of oil going over this area. You can go straight if you have kind of a direction where existing marks are on the piece, you can go that way. But with all this oil, you really shouldn't be removing any finish. It should just be taking off that softened up rust. And that brass transfer that we have from our efforts. Got a little bit right there. Let's wipe it down and see. And you saw, probably at the beginning of the video and in the video thumbnail, just how bad this was when we started. Let's take a look at it now. A little bit of a blemish there, but it feels really perfectly smooth. I mean, even with my thumbnail, it's a little bit perceptible, but almost gone entirely. But that's just the pitting that's remaining. But you can see that all that active rust, we've gotten rid of it, leaving pretty good finish. I mean, for a bolt that's probably, I don't know, 100 years old, maybe older, it's not bad. Turned out pretty nice. One other little trick they'll kind of throw in on this video is if you're trying to keep your guns from getting these rust spots on them, get you a paintbrush from the hardware store, just a synthetic bristled cheap paintbrush. I think this thing was $2 at Home Depot. Take a light gun oil. In this case, I'm using rim oil, but you can use a different one. And just put a little bit on that paintbrush. Not a whole lot. I mean, that was just a quick little line across, a few drops. and just paint. And this leaves a nice, even, thin coat of oil that's not too thin. And really does a great job of getting any fingerprints off, removing any lint, dust, the kind of things that can attract, hold moisture, and cause rust to happen. Let's look back here again now that we've oiled it. Pretty good. Nice and pretty. Well, there you go, guys. That's how you get some pretty aggressive rust pitting off of a gun part and try to protect it for the future and give it the best cosmetic appearance possible. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if this helped you. Have a good day.